This episode is supported by the Women's Health Clinic. At the Women's Health Clinic, you'll be seen by our accredited menopause specialists working to the latest international clinical guidance. We believe that knowledge is power. When you understand what is changing in your body and why, you can make decisions with clarity and confidence and feel back in control of your health. We really take the time to listen to your symptoms using evidence-based assessment and testing where appropriate, and explain what's happening in a way that actually makes sense. From there, we support women to explore all effective treatment options, including prescriptions when needed. Our aim is simple: to optimise women's healthcare wherever you are. No fannying around. Find out more at thewomenshealthclinic.eu.
Hey Fanniers, how are you? Episode 8 then. And there are some episodes that start with hormones and end up being about something much bigger. And this is one of those. Today, we're fanning around with Melissa and Steve. Steve Wall, MBE, don't you know? Melissa is a Great Britain, European and world powerlifting champion. She's also a strength coach and absolute powerhouse, and we love her. She took up competitive lifting at 47, right as menopause arrived and turned everything upside down. Steve, on the other hand, spent 42 years serving in the army and now spends his time coaching, supporting, and by his own admission, loading all the weights while Melissa steals the glory. They're a wonderful couple, and we talked to them about what really happens when hormones, identity, work, grief, ageing and relationships all collide at once. And why it's not always wise to wear your fanny magnet to Tesco. It's about losing sleep, losing patience, and maybe losing yourself a little bit. But also finding something else. Strength, purpose, boundaries, and a different kind of partnership. Steve shares with us what it was like watching the woman he knew suddenly seem different, and why more men need to understand that menopause isn't just a women's issue. Melissa opens up to us about powerlifting and how it became her anchor through grief, change and midlife, and why learning to protect your energy might be one of the most important things women ever do. We talk diet, exercise, and Steve reveals what the fellas say about us down the pub. And somewhere between powerlifting, HRT, army life and menopausal rage, there are some really important conversations about what happens when couples stop fighting change and start navigating it together. Right then, let's fanny around with Melissa and Steve.
Okay, so I'm Steve's wife. And we have lived in Spain for the last 7 years, coming up in November. We're sort of retired. I'm much more retired than Steve is at the moment. But I also, I am a powerlifter, so I compete for Great Britain in the sport of powerlifting. And I do that internationally. I do it in the UK, and that's my passion really, is strength sports, especially strength sports for women. So that's sort of me really, I guess.
Steve,
Yeah.
I am really interested in hearing about you too, but also I just want to go back to that because Melissa, we were saying that the powerlifting is quite a new thing, isn't it?
No, you're right. Interestingly, I took up the sport of powerlifting when I was 47, and I'm now nearly 60. But when I was 47, that's when my menopause was really kicking in. So it was an interesting time to try and navigate those changes, as well as taking up a competitive sport for the very first time in my life. So yeah, it was, yeah, it's led me to where I am now. So, it's all good. We got there.
How powerlifting then, Melissa? Because I'm always in awe of you when I see your reels, and I just think, and a lot of us, as we'll probably get onto in a moment, when you reach a certain age, we're told to lift heavy weights, which I try, and I think Katie does as well. But how did it become a competitive thing?
It was opportunity. I feel that life
Yeah.
is just so full of opportunities. And it just so happened that the gym that I started training at, the coach there was a strength specialist. And someone was entering, he was actually holding a strong woman competition. And there was very few women in the gym at that stage and very few women of my age. So he organised the Highlands Strongest Women. This is in the Highlands of Scotland. And we trained for it. And we had such a laugh with it. It was brilliant fun. And then someone had said they were doing a powerlifting competition, and he'd got me fairly strong on my deadlifts in particular, which is my favourite lift of the disciplines. And we decided to enter, which we did a few months later. And in that very first competition, I broke the Scottish deadlift record. And that just became addictive to me because
Yeah.
from being a runner for 9 years, Steve had got me into running years before. I hadn't explored strength. And it was so nice to try something new and think, could I actually be quite good at this? And I loved the training, and I've always loved the training from the very start till now. I love it. It's hard. It takes a lot of me, but I absolutely love it. So the competitions just started to roll from there. So went from Scottish to then going to a national to then in 2016 being selected for my first international, having previously done a Commonwealth in 2015. And it just kept rolling. And again, coming back to what I was saying about opportunity, these things have come up. And I've thought, as a woman of my age in a strength sport, I can't say no to any of these. So I'm prepared to put in the work and just keep rolling with it as it comes. So it's just amazing. I love it.
And so, Steve, obviously you are the pinnacle.
Yeah, I mean, I'm Melissa's greatest fan. I support Melissa through all of it. I mean, interestingly, Melissa had started powerlifting while I was overseas and didn't even know she was doing it. And when I returned from a 6 month operational tour with the army, I came back and she said, "Oh, we're off to Canada. What for?" I've qualified for the Commonwealth powerlifting. So a week later we were off, and then I kind of travelled around with Melissa, supporting, just seeing what it was about. And eventually I just thought, you know what, I'm gonna keep following her around and supporting her. I may as well do something, and I don't want to lift because it didn't fit with my sports. And so I became a coach and then a referee, and then I've been coaching internationally with Team GB Masters for, I don't know, 8 years, maybe a bit, 7, 8 years. And the lovely thing is that I get to train with Melissa here in Spain. So I go through all her training with her. I get to see the fire and the passion, the motivation, the tantrums and everything.
Lots of tantrums.
But then when we compete, I handle Melissa in the competitions, effectively coach her at each international and get her ready and prepared for it. So Melissa's it's a bit like being a diva. She's so special that she lifts all she lifts all the weights, and I have to load each of the bars and put everything away. And so I end up lifting about 20 tons, and Melissa just comes and does her bit.
I love the way Melissa's like the J-Lo of the powerlifting community.
Exactly.
So, because you said you were overseas, Steve. Take us back then. What was the day job? Tell us a little bit about you before you semi-retired.
Yeah, so basically shortly after leaving school, I joined the army, and I left at age 56, having served 42 years. And so, for me, sport was very much integrated with my day job. The services, I guess, we're all professional athletes because we've got to be in condition for our job. And so I had a very strong sporting background and ended up coaching from as early as the 1980s in running and and then progressed through boxing, weightlifting, judge, referees. And so, yeah, I served pretty much all over the world. 7 tours of Northern Ireland, Bosnia, Iraq, and 2 9-month tours of Afghanistan.
You don't look old enough. Tell us then, starting with you, Melissa, how old are you?
I'm nearly 60. I love it. Thank you.
Melissa, were you working when you were perimenopausal?
Oh, it was definitely around that 47. It was the impact on my sleep. It was the night sweats. It was, and I was so caught up in learning the sport of powerlifting that I actually didn't join the dots for ages. I didn't actually, I just thought, I'm just feeling a bit rubbish. And I remember just going to one of the herbalists because I thought, God, this maybe this is a menopause, and I always thought this happened to older women, and I thought, oh, I'm only late 40s, it seems a bit soon. I went to this herbal shop and she gave me some pills. I can't even remember what they are now. And then I heard about this thing that was advertised, and I nicknamed it the fanny magnet. So
And we're not talking about Steve here, people.
this fanny magnet was this little oval sort of plastic shaped thing with a little magnet on the back, and you tucked it in your knickers and then just put the magnet, and apparently that was supposed to help with the hormones, so you tuck it in your knickers. And I was in Tesco one day with the trolley, and I had a summer's dress on, and the dress I just stuck onto the trolley with the magnet. I was walking about with this dress sticking out. Anyway, that was some of my first foray to working out what I needed to help me through this thing called menopause, which was fast approaching, as it did. But then I quickly realised that actually, if I want to keep performing, I'm in a performance sport now. If I want to be at my best, then maybe it's not the best thing for me to be saying, "Oh, I'm not touching that HRT stuff." Because remember, this is only we're going back, nearly 13 years. It was still one of those things back then that you were actually almost afraid to speak to your GP about.
Nice. Yeah.
Because they would say, oh, you're too young, or, there's lots of risks around that. So it did take a lot of guts for me to actually approach the GP, who actually, in fairness, was very sympathetic. And I explained, I'm doing this sport now, and I really just feel rubbish. And they were really good. And I did quickly get onto an HRT tablet. And things improved dramatically, almost overnight, the night sweats. I mean, there was other things that started to creep in as they have done, but that's part as well, I think, of the aging process. But yeah, certainly that was how I managed that initial start of my menopause.
And Steve, how about you? Were you in the country? Had you noticed a change in Melissa's behaviour? Did you see dramatic improvements? How was the relationship at this stage?
I think to be fair, I probably noticed the changes before Melissa did. And this is, the internet was fairly hard to navigate in those days as well. It was around, but it wasn't as well. So I asked all my mates, and of course they all said, "Well, it's just them getting old. They're all miserable and they're grumpy, and that's what happens to women."
I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall in that pub.
Do you know it's probably pub talk that we all talk about and don't disclose to females. But I think it was to be honest with you, what I found very frustrating at that time is how it's. Melissa and I have said when we go through menopause, we're going through it together. So let's normalise the conversation and let's try and understand it and understand the facts. Because if we don't, we're not going to be a strong couple. And what really frustrates me is 50% of the population suffers. We all suffer, the ladies suffer. But even today, 2026, it's only just creeping into education in schools. Here in Spain, it's still even HRTs are quite kind of like frowned upon. It's culturally not accepted the same. But I find it very odd in this day and age that we don't have normal conversations about menopause and try and understand and put things into place to help everyone through it. And so many of my friends end up getting divorced at this kind of age.
Mm, yeah, and I'm going to defend the guys here because we speak to so many ladies on this podcast, and Katie does every day, that don't realise they're in perimenopause or menopause. So how on earth are their husbands and partners going to get their head around it? So it is important that we have conversations as couples, but as people, as people on podcasts like this.
Yeah, 100%. And I'll be honest with you, I did to start with. Um, the moods, the sulkiness, the dry, the sort of sleepless nights and the night sweats and things like that, hot flushes, I couldn't do much about. But it was the change was quite dramatic in Melissa, who was such an outgoing person, such fun to be with, and suddenly hated the world and everybody in it and everything. And that was the whole thing with menopause. It's not a woman's issue. It's a family relationship reality. Um, and, and so we have to. I mean, it's taken some time. Melissa has to say, look, if I'm sitting on my own and I go into another room, it's not personal. I just need my own space. And to start with, I would just follow her around the house, thinking, "Where's she going now?" And of course, if I went into the room she just escaped from, she got up and found somewhere else, and eventually it sunk in. Even occasionally now, I just say, "God, you're so rude. I'm trying to talk to you." And but we do laugh about it now. But I think it's, yeah, for men without an understanding and not a willingness to try and understand, it's just not a good recipe for a relationship. And it's sad because the other part is that so many people get divorced, and then some years later, post menopause, they kind of, they're all friends again. And why did we all fall out? It's because they were in love at one point.
It's so sad. And it actually brings me nicely to my next question for you, Steve. And going back to your life in the military and people
Yes.
understanding people and men and women working together in such a high pressured environment. And not just men and women, but relationships and understanding each other and being able to communicate.
Yeah.
Because effectively, you're putting your life in that person's hands. In the military, then, was menopause acknowledged? I'm really curious as to how they tackled and supported ladies who were serving.
Yeah, I mean it's actually quite funny because we don't have to go back very far in time. Certainly, while I was still serving, where the moment you got married as a female, you had to leave the army, and most women, I would say, left the army around the time of menopause. A soldier would typically leave at the age of 40 anyway. So and an officer would serve to 55. But most of the female officers would leave to, to start a family. So many of them left before it. However, now things are really changing because we're not as archaic as we once were. The female now only since, I don't know, the last 10 years can now fulfil any role in the military. 75% of jobs were excluded to them. And so now we are starting to see lots more. This year, for the first time, in history, there has been a woman in every single rank in the British Army, all the way up to general. First time ever. And so what we are noticing now is that because we have changed the rules and the ladies are serving longer, we are now seeing the effect, of course, of those that came through, particularly perimenopause.
It's incredible, isn't it? I think like the forces and the services are one of the main ones that have had a spotlight shone on them, especially in the recent years. The police force as well. Just, you said that was 10 years ago. It's almost unbelievable, isn't it, really, when we say it out loud? So how about you, Melissa? Were you working as you approached perimenopause?
Do you know, yes, I was. I was working for government, and that was rough because I worked full time there. I was rough working for government anyway, but I was working full time and I was fitting my training around that. So there was some mornings where I can't even believe I did this. Now I couldn't do it, but I was up at 4 a.m. and I had a commute of 30 miles on Scottish Highland roads, which we lived in a ski resort. So the blizzards and the snow, I had some horrendous drives to get to the gym, to train, to then be sat at my desk by 8:15, to finish at 6:15, make the 30-mile drive back home. It was horrendous. And, when I actually piece all of that together, I think, oh my God, no wonder I was shattered. Menopause, the training, the work, everything. But so I eventually, I said, I just had enough. I was getting grumpy. I realized I was going to be that grumpy old woman in the office. Sorry to grumpy old woman in the office. And I thought, I can't do this job anymore. And I had a great interest and passion for sport. And I used to run jogging groups at work at lunchtime and take people out just to help them get started. And I then decided to do my personal trainer examination. I did my boxing qualification. I did lots of things. And this was while I was working, commuting and training, which just blows my mind. It really does, because I need a nap after I eat dinner now. I'm just not doing that amount of activity anymore. So anyway, I kind of spoke to Steve and I said, look, I'd really like to just start being a personal trainer now, please, thank you. And he absolutely supported it. We knew there was going to be a wee drop in salary. Steve said, yeah, let's go for it. And we did. And it was the best thing I ever did, because I absolutely loved the change. So there was a lot of big changes that came around that. So it's not all doom and gloom, because I reevaluated everything based on how I was feeling.
I love that. I campaign, as you know, tirelessly, and that is the big push. Is that actually, perimenopause and menopause is a royal pain in the ass, but actually, when you get it right, so when you have a supportive partner, when you can communicate how you feel, to make it easier for them, but when you can also, you're kind of forced into a position of, something's got to change, and how can I make that change positive? And it doesn't always have to be becoming lesser. Perimenopause really can be about being more and accomplishing more, or just different things.
Yeah, it can be a massive time of opportunity. And I've said that before in interviews. It's identifying the things that you can change, whether that requires some support or not. I mean, I know I'm very fortunate in that Steve supported a lot of those decisions, and that may not be the case for many people, but it is a time of reevaluating your life, really. It might be dropping something, it might be starting a new hobby, it might be making a new circle of friends. I think it's feeding your soul is just important as recognizing the changes and the things that you're losing, finding another way to feed that soul.
We speak to so many ladies that treat it as a rebirth and an opportunity to start something new, or even just do what they've always wanted to, which is incredible. Tell me, Steve and Melissa, what does life look like now?
Well, I'll just start this off by saying at this point in of Melissa going through this menopause and these decisions to change her careers, the fundamental statement Melissa made was that I want to take control of my health through sports and through lifting, because all the evidence suggests that strength and conditioning will give me longevity through age, and which we'll come on to in a minute. And the other thing it did for us is it shone a light on how we looked at aging together and what that might look like. And so we train 4 days a week together all the time. Melissa runs workshops, and she's a real ambassador for strength in older women, but also through the menopause, both through perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause. And that evaluation has shaped everything that we do now. So I'll let Melissa answer the question from her side.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. So what our days look like now is we train together. The couples that train together stay together. It's not always, plain sailing in the gym environment, but we're very fortunate. We have our gym at home. We have all the equipment that I need, which was very difficult to access when we first came to Spain. So we ordered a lot of stuff. So we get up in the morning, the cat comes into bed with us, we have a cup of tea, we get our gym kit on. Like, most folk, I'd rather train in the morning because that's when I feel at my best. And we train, we have breakfast, we train, we eat some food. Steve's got quite a lot of work on at the moment, so it's just the day-to-day, cooking, cleaning, occasionally meeting up with friends, lunches, so just the usual stuff.
This is a question for both yourselves and Katie. There'll be a lot of ladies listening to this saying, why lifting? Why is lifting heavy weights important when I reach a certain age? Because I'm a cardio girl. I've been running all my life, or I like a spin class. Why is it so important to lift heavy weights?
Yeah. Well, there's so much evidence now. There's so much research. There has been for quite a few years, but we're just starting to really catch on now. I was fortunate I got in at the right time. I was already engaging with strength, and, I'm sure that some of those benefits I have actually realised without even, that wasn't the goal. The goal was to compete in powerlifting. But it's super important for everything as we age. We've got to keep improving our bone density, preserve any lean muscle mass we have, and then indeed build some. We've got to, strengthen our joints, our ligaments, our tendons. That is all done through lifting heavy. You've got to create, a stimulus, which you will not get from cardio, sadly, which you will not get from yoga. So we have to lift a weight. We have to pick up something that's heavy, and over time, and I don't mean go hell for leather, go in to a gym and pick up the heaviest weight and start ripping it out. You need a start point and progressively overload that. And I know, Katie, that you're doing your own strength training these days, which is amazing to see. I've seen some of your videos, and I'm sure you would agree with me that that's so important, the progressive overload aspect of it.
100%. And I think as well, and it comes back to, as it always does, is education. Exactly what you were saying as well, Steve, because how many times do you hear women, and this is my biggest bugbear, but how many times do we all hear women say, well, I'm just going to ride it out. I'm just going to do it the natural way. And that is great. Like, good for you, whatever that means. However, you have to know that if you just keep doing the same thing that you were doing in your 20s and your 30s, it is not going to go well. Because, for example, with your muscle mass doesn't just stay the same as it was. Actually, your muscle mass decreases from the age of 35. And for women, that's more pronounced because we lose our hormones. So your estrogen, your testosterone help maintain your muscle mass. So if you just do nothing and just keep running or keep going to yoga and don't add in a strength building exercise, whatever that may be, actively building muscle, your independence at 75 and 85 is going to be impaired. And I think without knowing that information, it becomes impossible to make the right decision. And, I try very hard not to be dogmatic about anything. However, I think some people might disagree. But I think it's important that we know, lifting weights, eating protein, making sure that you communicate your menopausal symptoms, perimenopausal symptoms, all of these things are really important, really important.
And that gives me the ideal opportunity to ask you about diet, Melissa, and what you eat. Because I'm sure a lot of ladies listening like me, we're lifting, we've got our weights in the garden, and we know about protein, and we know about carbs, and we know we shouldn't be probably having half a bottle of wine every evening. But tell us a little bit about what you eat in a day and the misconceptions around diet and menopause.
Yeah, I mean, I think it seems to be overly complicated, doesn't it? Because there's so many mixed messages. We've all got social media access to it, and I've got some trusted sources that I go to. But I've just learned along the way that the most important thing you can do is eat more protein. Try and have as many veggies in your life as you possibly can. Drink lots of water. Get great sleep. Do what you can to get that sleep. Have great sleep hygiene. Manage stress, which isn't that easy for some people, but just trying to find ways to manage that. The diet, it shouldn't be, it's all dependent on goals. So we know that if you are doing a gym program, any sort of lifting program, you want to probably increase your protein intake. That will help your muscles synthesize that protein. So I do have quite a high protein intake, which is around 130 grams a day. I can't say I get that in religiously every day because it's actually quite difficult.
It's so hard, isn't it?
Isn't it?
It's so hard.
A lot. But I would just say a start position is just start to have a wee look at your plate, fill it with veggies, get your carbs in there because we can't metabolize the protein without the carbs. So they're super important because a lot of women think, oh, I shouldn't have too many carbs. Carbs are amazing. You want that energy. That's your fuel source. You must have your carbs. But at the same time,
but the right ones.
Yes.
The right ones. Yeah, absolutely.
The right ones.
And, the protein is the thing that is my go-to. If I'm thinking of all of my meals, I automatically think protein source first, and then I build around that. And a gym program, just there's so many things online, but if you can even just get along to a gym or a trainer and just ask for some advice, ask for a program. Most gyms in the area would provide a program. Come along to some of my workshops, and then you get a program.
How do people find you, Melissa, and when is the next program starting?
Yeah, we don't have any planned immediately, but probably my Facebook or my Instagram page. So, yeah.
We will leave a link, I think. I think also that I'm going to caveat at what you said as well, Melissa, because actually you are completely right. Yes, people should ask their personal trainer for advice. However, I think there are a lot of women that aren't lucky enough to have a personal trainer like you. And actually what I hear a lot of is that women in perimenopause and menopause have a usually male personal trainer who tells them calories in, calories out, and go for a run and eat more broccoli. And actually I think what we have to remember is we're not small men. We can't just do what men do. It doesn't work. The keto diet, fasting in the morning, all of these things aren't particularly good for perimenopausal and menopausal women. So I think it's the same, isn't it? Is with everything, is advocate for yourself. So make sure that if your personal trainer is saying something useless like calories in and calories out, then probably do a little bit of research.
I think the problem for a lot of women is it's more about look. So for certainly in my experience as a personal trainer, many women did come to me for weight loss. But I wanted to obviously specialize in strength training. So that naturally happens anyway. But I think that's the problem, is that there's an assumption that everyone who's going to a personal trainer is going there to lose weight, and instead of building something, which is, it's not about getting big and bulky. That's incredibly difficult to do. A hell of a lot of work and a heck of a lot of food. So, it's going to someone that might be skilled in some of those areas and just, I just want to learn how to strength train, like strength training. It's not about, losing weight all the time. And that's been the biggest thing for me. I weigh my heaviest ever at this stage, and I don't mind it because I'm strong. And that's my ultimate goal. It's not a number on the scale. And I do feel sorry that, particularly for women of my age, we've gone through, the 90s and the supermodels and the ultra thin women. I wanted to be that. I was very, very skinny. I thought that was an amazing look. And I look back and I think that was a dreadful look. What was I doing to myself? And the society's pressures all through those last few decades, women are getting to my age. And actually, I find it quite hurtful to hear them say, well, oh, look, I just want to be skinny. And you think, really? That's not where your energy should be?
It's so confused, isn't it? I mean, we got told to be skinny, then we got told it's okay if you're a bit bigger, and actually the underlying message is just be healthy.
Just be healthy.
If you're a bit bigger but you're healthy and you feel the right way, it's just a constant pressure on women. And I think if you're going through menopause or perimenopause and you've got children, you've got, a busy life with work, and then you're trying to find this time at the gym, and I always find the free weight part of the gym is, it's a particularly testosterone fueled part of the gym, which can be a bit daunting, especially if you don't know what you're doing. You feel a bit of a wally. And then with the anxiety and the thoughts with menopause, it's finding this motivation as well to go and find a new routine at the gym and get over all these things and get that energy. And yeah, it's difficult.
I actually, when you look at the whole menopause piece, it's like the perfect storm. You're getting older, your muscle mass is starting to deteriorate, your bone density is getting worse. So all the recommendations to go to the gym, but you're the wrong age and the wrong type to go to a gym. And like you said, in a male-dominated gym.
Well, and also your motivation's in your boots as well, isn't it?
Yeah. But everything is almost a barrier to you going in and to fixing your life. And people say to me all the time, "Oh, it's all male-dominated gyms," and particularly here in Spain, it is more so. And my advice is, if you don't have access to a good coach who should be welcoming and understanding and know all about menopause, if you don't, go with some friends, or great if you've got a supportive partner that can go with you to the gym. But you can do an awful lot of this at home. One of the things that we said, and I mentioned earlier about we wanted to age differently, is we watch so many old people struggling to get in and out of the armchair. Our own families. Struggling to carry shopping. If they fall over, they just break every bone or can't get up in many cases. And so much of that you can fix at home. You can squat in the couch. You can, like you said, get small pieces of equipment and train, or get a few girls together, a few of the ladies together, and do something together. It builds the community aspect.
Can I
as
ask
well.
you guys a question?
Don't always look at things as a barrier.
Taking into consideration everything that we've discussed, what's your relationship like now, and how do you think that perimenopause and menopause has shaped that?
I'll start with saying that Melissa has probably defied all of the science, because she's turned 60 this year, and every competition she's getting a personal best. Earlier on this year, she broke five British records. Scottish records. She got 5 European medals last week. 4 of them were silver and her team gold. And she's stronger now than she's ever been, and I think mentally and physically stronger. And that's very much about our outlook and the way we look at things. And I think if there's understanding and there's communication, you can have a very strong relationship. And now, where I would probably, I don't know, not want to argue, but if I'm frustrated by something that Melissa says or does, I now know.
Just means I haven't sorted out our HRT properly. That's what it means.
It's the menopause. So, yeah. And I think that Yes.
But I think one of the things you may not know is that Steve and I actually haven't lived together full time until we moved to Spain 7 years ago. We did have a home together, but Steve always lived away because he was always in different parts of the country or different parts of the world. So we were pretty much a weekend relationship or a couple of weeks a year or whatever. So this has been a major change for us to be together 24/7.
Wow.
And, it wasn't without its challenges at first. And plus, you add in a big move to Spain, from Scotland. So it's certainly, at times, it's been challenging, but I think it's just getting used to each other's space. And that's been the biggest challenge for me, being in each other's space all the time. I'm probably much more introverted than I was before menopause, which means that I'm much less sociable. And I know Steve does struggle with that because he wants to do everything. Steve just wants to go. Anything he gets invited to or asked to, he's like, yeah, can we go? Can we go? And I'm like, do you know what? I just can't, or I'm not in the mood, or I do sometimes. And I said, just you go. And I know I feel really bad about that because it's important to him that I do these things, but I've got to a stage there where if I go to something and I can be instantly annoyed, by something, I won't enjoy myself. And if I don't enjoy myself, I'm going to spoil it for you. So
I can absolutely relate, Melissa. I think I'm an introverted extrovert, and it sounds like you are too.
Yes.
And I see a lot of similarities with us because I can turn it on when I need to. But sometimes after a long, busy week at work and I walk into the apartment and I think, I've not got to see anyone or commit to anything for at least 2 days, and my shoulders go down and I can relax. And if I don't want to be somewhere, and I know we spoke to another lady on the podcast, Katie, and she said the same. If I don't want to go anywhere anymore, I don't want to go out with the girls, or I don't want to see my best friend or go out with my partner, I say no. I take that time back for myself, and that energy is precious. And it is almost being quite selfish. I take it back and I think to myself, do you know what? If I want to go and read a book in bed or sit in the garden with a dog rather than go out, then I will.
I totally recognise that. And I think what you said, energy, it's protecting energy. That's one of my priorities, is protecting my energy. And it's not easy for guys either. I think, Steve's changing. He's getting older, and things are happening for him as well. He's starting to feel a bit creaky in his joints and things like that. He gets a little bit more grumpy in certain places. So, we say that they don't get such a rough ride hormonally, but they have their own challenges. So it's kind of, I need to be mindful of the things that are probably challenging him as well. He can't cycle as hard and fast as he used to. He can't run the way he used to. He spent so long in the military that his joints are shot. But so yeah, it's a bit of give and take, really.
But do you think, I think that's what's really nice about this, is actually, it seems, you didn't have a choice, Melissa. Your body was changing and you had no choice but to listen. And what's really apparent, actually, is you, as you said right at the beginning of the podcast, Steve, that this was going to happen to both of you. And because of that, it really seems like you've both you've benefited, Steve, as well as, so, Melissa's had to make all of these changes. And it kind of seems that you've used that as a point of reflection for not only how do you feel now, but how are you going to move forward? And I suppose because you've given Melissa understanding and support, then that kind of, it's a nice relationship narrative, isn't it? We are an understanding and supportive couple, mainly because we had to be, but now we've learned.
Yeah, and I think that's really key. And if we can help one or two of your listeners here, the best thing to do is to navigate menopause together
and talk to each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Super important.
Melissa, it used to be. She's a lot more blunt now. You know, I'm going to go in the other room now, and I understand that now. I'm not following you. Whereas it was, she tried to be a bit more subtle to start with, but and I just think, now I understand that what Melissa goes through. It does help a lot. From my background, being in the military, we have to understand how everybody works, because the person to my left and right, I've got to put my life in their hands and then me. And so I know, and it allows us to, soldiers are great at this because they know you can't change anybody. So if someone's got their strengths, you exploit those strengths. And where there's a weakness, somebody else in the team can fill it. So I brought that in as a couple. We're a couple together. We're going to live together for the rest of our life. So let's make it as happy as we can. And if she is starting to feel, and the mood goes, or she's got low energy, I know it's not the time to take her to out shopping or to go out for a walk. And it's about respecting that space and understanding that the journey that we're on together. But I think Melissa is a very different type of person, though, because in the last 13 years, she has never missed a day's training. Doesn't matter how she felt, never once. And everything, she's jollying me into the gym. Come on, let's go. I want to start training now.
To be fair, it's been my anchor, through all of this, through life, through the move, through missing the children, through mum being sick, through losing my dad. The one thing I've always had is my training. So as much as it might sound like, she's very motivated. Yes, I am, but my motivation is based around, this is a bit of a coping strategy for me when things, pop.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, I'm with you. I think sometimes when we're grieving or when times are hard, I don't know about you, but I tend to challenge myself physically. I lost my father, signed up for a run. I lost a friend. Oh, I know, I'll sign up for a triathlon. For me, it's like a physical release when you're grieving or, going through some hard times. It's almost like, how can I push myself another way to get this out? It's a really strange thing. So we'll finish up, and I'm going to ask you a question we ask everybody on the podcast. If you could have a chat with your 20-year-old self and give them a few pearls of wisdom, what would you tell them?
Okay, I'll go first. I think I would say to myself, stop caring about what other people think. Stop saying yes and start saying hell no, which has changed to now because I'm more inclined to be the hell no girl. And just I think that's it really. I don't really yeah.
But I think for me, life is going to be rocky at times. It's never a smooth road, and there's going to be challenges all the way. So get someone that you can share that journey with, and just appreciate each other for who they are. And it's do what you can when you can and enjoy life, because very soon you get too old, it's all too late, and then you'll be full of regrets and should I have done that, whereas we've just done anything and everything. I mean, a classic example was on a cold snowy day in Scotland, I said to Melissa, we're moving to Spain. Now Melissa had never been to
Spain.
Well, not really,
numerous times.
Yeah, but we were in Spain 4 weeks later, house sold, jobless, houseless.
I think I might have heard about this story, actually.
You probably have moaned to you about it quite a few times, Katie.
Guys, thank you so much for your time today.
So welcome. Thank you.
We've absolutely loved talking to you.
Thank you so much. It's lovely to see you.
And Katie, keep up the great work, keeping these ladies on the road.
I will. Yeah. Thank you so much. It's so nice to speak to you, and thank you so much for your time.
This episode of Fannying Around is supported by Clear Boost. a women's health supplement range I created after years of working in clinic and seeing how confused and overwhelmed women felt by supplements. Each product is designed to support the symptoms that I see most often: hormone changes, low energy, poor sleep, low mood, and stress, using ingredients chosen for their specific roles in hormone regulation, energy production, and nervous system support. The idea was to replace long, random supplement lists with a small number of targeted formulas so women know what they're taking and why. Find out more at clearboost.eu.
I knew that was going to be a good one.
Oh.
And I recommend everybody listening to get themselves a Steve.
Oh, do you know what? I really enjoyed that. I feel like I actually had loads of questions that I didn't get a chance to answer. I feel like we only just scratched the surface there of, I just love that they really made it work for them.
Yeah.
And, accepted that the change was happening. It's not a bad thing. It's just something that you just adapt to.
Yeah. And I think, sounds an odd thing to say, but I think being the type of people that they are, fit, healthy, determined, I think that has played a massive part in terms of, like Steve said, we were going to get old our way. They'd already set that goal, like, we're going to do this together and we're going to do it our way and we're going to age, impeccably. And crikey, they are. You look at Melissa and she looks phenomenal. There's a lady that's hitting 60 this year, and wow, and is not only looking great but smashing all those records at her age. She's at her peak, really, when you think about it.
Do you know what? I feel like, for me, Melissa kind of encompasses everything that perimenopause and menopause can be. And I think, as women, we're resilient and we're tough. But I think perimenopause is the time where the shit really hits the fan.
Yeah, and you've got no choice but to just pull on a pair of big girl boots.
Just think, right, okay, well, how am I going to make this work? What can I do? And how wonderful to have a partner that, is right beside you saying, yeah, okay, well, if you've got to do it, we'll do it. We'll just do it.
Yeah, and I was just about to say props to Steve, because
massive.
I think, we talk a lot about ladies, obviously, on this podcast. It's a women's health podcast, but, there are some great guys out there that are asking the right questions, offering the right support. And if they don't get the answers to those questions, they're going and finding them for their wives. And, especially Steve, he's not only supporting her emotionally or mentally, he's physically helping her lift and getting involved. And he got his own qualifications to referee, and, they are well and truly in this together, and it's admirable. I think they're such a wonderful couple and very inspiring.
Very inspiring. Do you know what? And actually, this week in clinic, I have had quite a lot of husbands come into the consultation with women. It always throws me off a little bit. And I think, we get the odd husband that's just there because his wife's lost her libido, and, he wants to know whether she can have some testosterone so they can get back to having active sex. Yeah. But I think, to be honest, that's few and far between. And actually, most men that come, I think, are there because in some instances they've made the appointment, but also because they want to understand more, want to be more, we don't have, we weren't given the education and the rule book, and if we weren't, gosh, it certainly means that they weren't. So I
think Steve alluded to, he's sort of losing the Melissa he knew. She was angry at the world, she was down, she was low energy, and I think giving it to the guys out there, they're suffering a loss, they're grieving for the person that they once knew and loved, and they want that person back as much as the person themselves.
So much. I think it's just gradually, I think it's obviously an awareness about menopause and hormones, but how that can impact your relationship and the kind of change of dynamic that it enforces. And a change of dynamic doesn't have to be a bad thing.
Fannying Around was brought to you by Everything's Rosie, presented by me, Rosie Frost, and Katie Pitt-Allen, and sponsored by Clear Boost Supplements and the Women's Health Clinic Europe.